Oh, what a start of the week and end of October with the releases Apple has announced over the last few days. An iPad mini update, an iMac facelift, a new Mac mini, a much needed update to the MacBook Air, a major update to the MacBook Pro. It's pretty much all great except for a few details I didn't like, which I'll mention in a few moments. Let's dive in. So, as Jack the Ripper did, let's take it in parts. Apple first launched the iPad mini update via press release, much in the style of Samsung with the S24 FE and Galaxy Tab S10 launches. Well, this new iPad mini has a super interesting updates, and like everything Apple has been releasing since September, it's designed for Apple Intelligence. As a processor, it has the A17 Pro chip, the same as the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, which makes it quite powerful in fact, although on paper it has the same amount of CPU and GPU cores as the previous one. It's a design of an architecture that changes. Well, all the new features this generation of iPad mini include support for Apple Pencil Pro and Apple Pencil with USB-C, support for Wi-Fi 6E and the storage options on offer with 128, 256 and 212 GB of storage, although it is no longer compatible with the second generation of Apple Pencil. From there on, it's pretty much the same features as the previous generation, except for a small detail on the back where you can see an engraving that says iPad mini. And so perfect here. Well, the price of this iPad mini in Mexico starts from 11,999 pesos, in France from 609 euros, and in the United States from $499. Another small update on Apple's side is the RAM size of the base MacBook Air models, which goes up to 16 GB finally. MacBook Air prices did not increase as a result of this update, fortunately. Moving on to the more depth updates, the iMac got a necessary and quite interesting facelift, receiving Apple's new M4 processor with up to 10 CPU and 10 GPU cores ready for Apple Intelligence. This iteration of iMac is available with up to 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports, 32 GB of RAM and up to 2 TB of storage, and in 7 slightly different and some new colors compared to the generation with the M3 chip. Something quite interesting about this update is the inclusion of a 12-megapixel camera called Center Stage by Apple, which tracks the subject in frame like on the iPad and iPhone, so you're always in frame without moving the device, which is already kind of trippy, and it is also capable of taking overhead shots. In other words, it looks at the desktop as if you had a camera directly above it, which is pretty cool to be honest, it is pretty sick. The other features are similar to the previous generation, except for the increase in RAM memory from the base model, which goes up to 16 GB. Finally, pricing for the iMac in Mexico starts at 31,999 pesos, in France from 1,499 euros, and in the US from $199, and it was available for pre-sale on 5th November this year in Mexico, and will be available in France and the United States in November 8th. The tiny but accomplished Mac Mini had a major redesign, changing almost completely from the one it had from almost 20 years, a period in which it had minimal changes such as the integrated power supply in 2010, the removal of the disk drive in 2011, and the inclusion of the RAM soldered into the motherboard on 2014. This time Mac Mini got really mini. It measures 12.7 centimeters wide and depth and 5 centimeters thick. To give you an idea of how many it was made, Mac Mini with the M1 measures 19.7 centimeters wide and depth and 3.6 centimeters thick. This new Mac Mini is available with Apple's new M4 and M4 Pro processors, with up to 14 CPU cores and 30 GPU cores, up to 64 GB of RAM and up to 8 TB of internal storage, with a base model starting at 16 GB of RAM and 256 GB of internal storage. Finally, with a computer as small as this, you can work with up to 3 monitors, as well as multiple USB-C accessories and up to 3 connected via Thunderbolt 4 or 5, depending on whether it's the M4 or M4 Pro versions, as well as 2 USB-C ports on the front and the availability to offer an Ethernet port up to 10 GB speed on both versions. It does retain the HDMI port though. The price of this Mac Mini in Mexico starts at 14,499 pesos, in France from 699 euros, and in the United States from $599, starting its pre-sale in Mexico on 5 November this year, and its availability from 8 November in the United States, France, and Mexico. Personally, I think this is a much needed update, bearing in mind Apple's future goals with respect to sustainable development, as it had been shown that there was an excess of unused space in the previous design given the switch to Apple's processors, taking up less space inside a big aluminum case. Well, saving the best for last, let's talk about the new MacBook Pro, which has been in the eye of the storm for a few weeks now due to an alleged leak on Russian tunnels. This year, the MacBook Pro received major upgrades, including the inclusion of the aforementioned M4 and M4 Pro chips, as well as the M4 Max chip, which, while it has the same number of cores in CPU and GPU, according to Apple, the data exchange bandwidth is higher in the M4 series than in the previous series, the M3. Like the mouse unveiled this month, the base version starts with 16GB of RAM and 512GB of internal storage, with 14-inch and 16-inch versions also available with up to 128GB of RAM and up to 8TB of storage, depending on chip version you choose. Other small updates include increase the battery life up to 22 hours, 3 Thunderbolt 5 ports on the M4 Pro and Max chips versions, and the inclusion of a third Thunderbolt 4 USB-C port on the M4 chip versions, plus the availability of a nano texture anti-glare display. The price of this MacBook Pro in Mexico starts from 37,999 pesos, in France from the not unimpressive 1,899 euros, and in the United States from 1,599 dollars. Well, now tell me in the comments, what do you think of these launches? Frankly, looking back at the updates to each of products launched, it actually makes sense to me that they were announced in a separate videos. From a marketing perspective, not to mention the slight update to the iPad mini, which after seeing the updates to the Macs, makes even more sense that it was announced via a press release. Thanks for watching the video until the end. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications and share it with your friends. That will be pretty helpful. See you on the next video. GAMAGAs.